I'm Alex, better known as Hire to the rest of the internet. Today I'm going to be going over Moxfield. It is a website that helps you host your deck lists as well as a really powerful tool to create new lists at the drop of a hat. But first, we got to make an account. When you register for an account, super easy. You're going to make a username, password, confirm your password, and an email. Once you do that, you're going to click register. After you log in, you'll be able to see some links at the top of the page. You have browse decks, your decks, wish lists, users, and help. Under the browse deck options, you can look at different decks that are made by brewers from all over the world. And these decks can be filtered really easily by clicking on recently updated. And here you can view by recently created, most views, most likes, most comments. And the same thing goes with formats. If you're a big fan of Brawl or Conquest, Legacy, for example, or Commander, you can pretty much get a feel for all the new decks that are being made now and take a look at what some other people are thinking about. There's also the Hubs tab, and in the Hubs, you can look at different archetypes that decks fall under, and you can see what is the newest Jeskai deck or the newest aggro deck. We even have things like Jank. Super awesome. So great way to look at what's being made now and what archetypes are being brewed currently. You can also search the decks for anything under the sun, whether it's blue stacks, blue farm, blue, any of those things are searchable tools. And you can use this to create an advanced search. And if you're familiar with other websites like Scryfall, this might be really easy for you. But if we click on it anyways, you can see deck name, format, hub, card in board, companion, and sort. These are all the different options that can help you look through the decks. And that's pretty much how that works. After browse decks, we can go to your decks. And these are all the decks that we can see that we have made. And you can organize them in folders. You can also make sure that if you are interested in, classifying a deck as a brew or a finished product, that is a great way to do that. In wish lists, these are decks that we might want. We want a Winds of Rebuke. It's 25 cents, and we can buy it using the TCG Player link. Lastly, we have users, and these are the newest users, top viewed users, as well as users with the most follows. Great way to see maybe your favorite brewer or a way to look at what the newest budget brew could be, and you can look under certain budget channels that have Moxfield accounts. Lastly, in the help tab, you're going to have answers to all your questions. A super great way to see what's coming up, how to utilize some of the new features, how to embed your decks, stuff like that. All of that's going to be found underneath the help tab. All right, let's think about making a deck. So when you want to make a deck, you click new deck. You can add a deck here. You're going to add who your commander is. Also, if you want it to be unlisted, so only the people who have a link to this deck can see it, or be under private, meaning that even if they have a link, it won't work unless you make it unlisted. You have a public option, means anyone can see it, obviously. And in the existing deck list options, we have, if you have no deck list, you're making it from scratch, that's great. You can paste in a list. So this is a list that you maybe copied, you wrote it in some notes, you have it from another deck file. Anything like that. If you want to paste the text version of that, you can do that. From file is an actual deck file that you may have saved from earlier. And from a URL works if you're trying to paste in a deck list from tapped out or arced deck specifically. Okay. After creating it, once you click create a deck, it will take you to this page. So first we're actually going to go to one of our decks. Look it, we have a deck ready for you all to see. So when you create a deck, it will take you to this page. You'll see the commander that you want, and you can actually add all of these cards individually, or you can click on this quick tab, and you can add cards from the Add CEDH Staples button or from packages. And we're going to go over packages in another video because that itself is a new concept. But the basic synopsis of it is you can browse all packages, click on any package, and from here, you can subscribe to it. If you subscribe to it, it will show up underneath the options that you have for the packages that you want to utilize. And in this package, you see all of these different cards. And in here, we have Mystic Sanctuary, Ponder, right? These cards that are relevant for what it's offering, and that is a blue template, right? This is a competitive Pauper commander, which is awesome. But that's a really great way to get all the cards that you need in a very fast way. So we're going to hop back down to the deck that we had. So looking at this page, there are a lot of options. Let's go from top to bottom. This is the comments button. This will take you to the comments directly instead of scrolling down to the bottom of the page. You can bookmark this deck if you really liked it. And if this wasn't your deck, you could bookmark any deck. So if you wanted to take a look at some decks later, you can do that. And if you click on bookmark, it's going to show up here under bookmarks. If you want to create a primer, you can, and that's super easy. Look at Orzhov. Stacks is awesome, right? So really easy, save primer, super easy to do, and then you can just go back to your deck list. When you start going down, you can play test your deck. You can buy the deck outright. You can also share the deck. When you share the deck, this is going to give you a link to it. Remember, if your deck is set to private, this link will not work for other people. It'll work for you, but not for other people. Then you can go ahead and click more. From here, you can export the deck, you can duplicate the deck, you can compare the deck to another deck on Moxfield. You can also view history. This will give you an easy access view of what cards you have taken out in the past and what cards you might want to consider putting back in. You can also change your commander at any time. You can import your deck. You can do a bulk edit, and this is for people who want to paste in a list that they have a text version of. You can edit your primer. This is similar to the button that's right here. You can update to cheapest, which is a great option for folks who really want to get the most out of their deck. It's good to note here that most decks on the CEDH database are not the cheapest versions of the cards that they have posted in those decks. So you can duplicate a deck, update it to cheapest to see the actual cost that the deck might cost you. This is the EDH rec button. This will take you to another website that will show some cards that are in the same archetype that you're trying to build. You can change the author to give credit to maybe another person who's building the deck with you. And then you can click on settings. We're actually going to go into that for a second. In settings, you can change the name, you can change the format. You can also talk about the description, and you can also allow comments, disallow comments, change hubs, stuff like that. Okay. So that is that. In the highlighter tool, we can use the mana symbols, what it produces, and all of these, and these will help us understand what color pips or what mana value or what it produces, and it highlights the cards that do that. Okay, speaking of viewing options, when you go over here, you can view the decks in a text version, which is what you see now, a visual grid, which allows you to see all of the cards visually, and then visual stacks. And this might be the most similar to what you're used to seeing when you're at home brewing decks, and that's probably why that might be appealing to you. You can also group these cards by a color. You can group them by mana value. You can group them by rarity, right? These are all ways for you to help organize what you want to do. And depending on the format that you're playing, these all have very unique and more than likely very viable features that you might use. You can also sort them by mana cost, by price, and by name. If you want to go into the more advanced options, here's what that looks like. Again, same thing. It allows you to do all of those different drop-down menus, but in one menu. Okay. When you scroll down a little bit, if you want to add a card to a wish list, so let's say we want to add Thalia, it's really easy. We just did it. We added Thalia to the wish list. As long as the card is highlighted, that's all you need to do. From here, if you click on tokens, if this deck had more token generators in the deck, you would have all the different types of tokens that could be in the deck. If we had Dockside, or in this deck we have Smothering Tithe, so that's why we see a treasure token. If we had a card that allowed you to be Monarch, you'd see a Monarch token in this area as well. All right, as we scroll down, we see the different mana values in the deck. So we have 7 permanents that cost 0. We have 10 permanents that cost 1, so on and so forth. This is the key that indicates what each color means. So we have purple permanents. We have these are spells. It's going to be this gray bar on top. And when we look at this axis, it is the mana cost. And then when we look at this axis, it is the number of cards. And so these bars are represented in that way. When you look at this area, you can see all of the different spells that cost 0 mana, because we had clicked that earlier. Same thing goes for here. So now we see all the spells that cost 1 mana. Same thing here, all the spells that cost 2 mana, so on and so forth. Really good way to organize your deck and get an idea of where your mana curve is. Really simple for any person to use here. The average mana value of your main board is going to be in this area underneath this bar. And in this deck, it's 1.53 with lands and 2.16 without lands. The deck's total mana value is 151. That means the total mana value that we see in the entirety of the deck is 151. That's on average. This number, this average in the deck, is important if you're running cards like Ad Nauseam or cards that care about mana value in the deck. And that's why you might want to pay attention to that. Below that, we have the total number of pips in the deck. So when you look at this, we have 54% of the deck is white. And in here, 31% of the deck is black. And this is not counting your lands. And so when you are looking to create your mana base, you really want to make sure that your symbols are as closely aligned with this number as possible. So in this deck, we see 58% of the deck can make white, and in this part, 42% of the deck can make black. So as long as this number is bigger than this number, you should be able to make the mana you want to make at any point. Here, we can do a really quick add to basic lands. So if I wanted to add more white basic lands, you can add a plains. If you want to add more black basic lands, you can add a swamp right here. As we scroll down, we see a test hand. This is great because we can take a look at what our opening hands might look like. Average number of lands in opening hands, 2.05, which is great. If you want to go a little bit further, you can actually play test it. Really great way to understand how your deck works. In here, each area has a drop-down menu. So on the battlefield, you can untap. You can move all the cards on the battlefield to hand. You can move all the planeswalker to graveyard, right? So these are all different things that you could do in any given game. Same thing goes with the player button, which allows you to showcase if you want to gain life, if you want to lose life, get some poison counter, roll a 20-sided die, all of those things. Easy at your disposal. If you want to restart the game, super easy. Click restart. If you want to add a token, these are the tokens that are most common. And then if you want to search for a token, you can just click search for a card and it will look for any token that you want. You can shuffle really easy. Look at your library shuffled. You can view your library and it'll pop up everything here. And from here, you can actually drag a card out to the battlefield, drag a card to your hand, drag a card to the graveyard, drag a card to the top of your library, anything like that. We're going to restart one more time. You can draw a card, just play and draw, and then this will indicate next turn. This will, if you're trying to play test, and you go to next turn, it will untap you for you. Okay. Looking at the hand, these are all actions that you can do from your hand. If you want to resolve a gamble, this will discard a card randomly for you. If you click on your library, same idea, right? These are all different things that you might do in a deck. You can play with the top card revealed, right? Stop playing with the top card revealed. Very, very simple. Graveyard has a drop-down menu. These are the same things as like the battlefield, right? So you can move all the cards from your graveyard to anywhere you want. You can move all creature cards to hand, all to hand, anything like that. You can exile, same thing as the graveyard. And then you have a command zone. If you have two commanders, both commanders will pop up here. Super great. Outside of that, something that you might be interested in doing is using the mana tracker. This will allow you to really take a hold of what mana you actually might use. So if you're playtesting, you can use these to keep track of your mana. Up here is your life total. Same thing with Phyrexia or poison counters, and then if you want to use energy. And then also if you want to take a look at your turns, this is what your turns can look like really, really fast. Same as this button. Fantastic. Let's go back. Okay, so we're going to go back to our decks. Go back to Orzhov stacks. Great. Here are where the comments are. They're underneath where we just were, the playtest button. This will showcase the cost of the deck. This will showcase where some of the sets come from, as well as how many cards you have total in the deck in the sideboard. It also might show you other decks that use the same commander and what that can be. Here are some articles that are written specifically from TCG Player. And then we have some acknowledgments in the bottom. Okay, so we made a deck. We kind of understand what that might look like. You can also change the card image if you want. All right, let's go back to profile. Here are all the different decks that Playing with Power has that are public. We can add a bio. We can change the picture. Yeah, really straightforward here. And lastly, and then in settings, you can talk about how you can look at the different tags. If you want to join the Patreon, you can. If you want to change your password, stuff like that, how you want to get notifications, pricing and affiliates, and then different decks. So you can click on these to explore what that looks like. You can also change. I'm not going to click this button because I'd never want to have my tabs in light mode because my eyes, they will revolt. So I'm not going to click on that, but you can change this from dark mode to light mode. Super straightforward. You can look at your notifications and then you can click sign out. Yeah, and that's, in a nutshell, that's Moxfield. There is a lot to it. It is a really great, powerful tool to use when you're trying to make new decks. Honestly, it's a tool I use all the time. On my personal Moxfield page, I have hundreds and hundreds of decks because I have been brewing for so long that I needed a place that could handle all of the decks and make it easy for me to organize how my decks are listed. And this website does that for me. I encourage you all to check it out. This guide to Moxfield isn't going to be a series, but more of a one video guide. So we want to include all the major features that we'll be using in subsequent videos.